Just a few days ago, Ubisoft completely admitted that they have no idea what gamers want from entertainment because they said that microtransactions helped us experience more fun, which is just a crazy take. But now we're hearing studios say that players are very sensitive to the quality of games nowadays, and there's a high risk of bashing causing damage to their brand, and honestly, they only have themselves to blame. But before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, none of us expect anything good to come out of Ubisoft anymore. They released Skull and Bones, X-Defiant, Star Wars Outlaws, Assassin's Creed Shadows, just failure after failure after failure, and who knows what they're even going to come out with next. There are so many games that they have in the works that have been delayed multiple times or are just in dev hell, and Ubisoft is a company that I think is too far gone at this point. I don't think that they will ever reach the height that they were once at, but of course a few days ago they were claiming that microtransactions helped players experience more fun, which was already crazy enough. And they were saying, though, even if it's optional content, they want more content to consume. That's why I guess they decided for Assassin's Creed Shadows to sell for $10 freaking an interactive map. But now we have them coming out and saying even worse things, like players are sensitive to the quality of games nowadays, so there's a high risk of bashing causing damage to its reputation. Maybe if you created the games that people wanted and you actually were hiring talented developers who were making great experiences, you wouldn't be bashed for your titles. Your games would be beloved again, and ultimately the quality would be higher, so there wouldn't be as much controversy. But when you're selling us slop that is undercooked, right? Like Star Wars Outlaws needed another half a year of development time, and Skull and Bones clearly needed like another year. Maybe if you weren't giving us those experiences all the time, you'd be making more money. So the Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot says recent trends towards good games have resulted in an increase in online bashing that could potentially pose a business risk to the Assassin's Creed and Far Cry publisher. Boo-hoo, cry me a river and float upstream. Like, yeah, it's not our fault that you are not creating good games. It's your developer's fault and your studio lead's fault for hiring these losers. In a newly published investor presentation, he laid out what he sees as a high risk factor stemming from a highly competitive environment where players are very sensitive to the quality and content of games. Yeah, when you're trying to sell us experiences for $70, now $80 to $130 or $140 if you want the digital, like premium versions of games, we're going to criticize, we are going to scrutinize, we are going to be highly sensitive, quote unquote, to the quality of a game. You are asking for, in some cases, nearly $100 for an experience, and then you only expect us to get 15, 20 hours of enjoyment out of it? Absolutely not. I'm willing to pay a hefty price tag for a game that is good, and I know so many other people agree, but you're not giving us those experiences anymore. Assassin's Creed Shadows wasn't the game that Assassin's Creed fans wanted. You guys say that you had 5 million players in-game, but yet you will not admit the sales because the sales are probably trash. I would guess 1 million or maybe even 2 million of those players came from things like the Ubisoft subscription service, Ubisoft Plus, maybe from pack-ins and bundles for things like Blue Yeti microphones and graphics cards, things like that. There are a lot of games that are packed into hardware sales. Like, you're not admitting sales because the sales are probably trash. Star Wars Outlaws underperformed. You're blaming the Star Wars brand, and sure, I think that's part of the reason why it failed, but ultimately it's not the only reason. These people just don't understand what makes games good anymore and why people are so upset with them. They said, though, in a list of specific and material risks to which Ubisoft is exposed, he categorizes various factors including failure in the development and launch of a video game, toxicity in games and services, and bashing as either moderate or high risk factors. If you were creating a good game, you would not face backlash. If you were releasing high quality content, you would not be receiving any sort of negative messages. You would not have to deal with lowered sales. It's not toxicity, it's criticism. criticism. Criticism doesn't equal harassment, and people are going to criticize the hell out of your studio and the product when you are asking for so much money. Ubisoft is exposed to risks of damage to its reputation resulting from online bashing, understood as massive, sometimes virulent and organized campaigns of criticism against its products. I love how they say that they're exposed to risks of damage to its reputation because of us, when really they are only the ones that are damaging their own reputation. It's your fault you put out a trash product. The changing perception of the video game industry as a cultural and artistic medium is also leading to an increase in criticism based on ideological or societal considerations, sometimes to the detriment of technical or gameplay aspects. See, you're admitting the quiet part out loud here, because what you're doing is you're ultimately putting ideological or societal considerations first before entertainment value, and that's why people are heavily criticizing you. See, you're trying to put the blame on us when really you need to put the blame on yourself. They say, though, this trend increases the risk for publishers such as Ubisoft of being exposed to controversy relating to social, moral, or identity standards associated with their productions. The context around his statements isn't explicitly clear, but it is implicitly very gross and stupid. The company's most recent tentpole release, Assassin's Creed Shadows, took unwarranted heat from a certain corner of the internet for its duo of black samurai and female protagonists. There are plenty of games that have black protagonists and female protagonists. The point was that this company said that, oh, it's historically accurate when it clearly wasn't. They went to certain outlets like Forbes and also The Gamer and Polygon, right? And they trashed gamers and said, oh, it's your fault for being so bothered by this content. And then on top of that all, the game itself just wasn't very good. It wasn't the experience that people wanted. It was buggy and broken at release. And you take just a mediocre story and you add all of these things to that pile, yeah, people were not happy with the decisions that were made surrounding this game. Was it the worst game I've ever played? No, but it definitely wasn't the best, and it certainly wasn't the Assassin's Creed experience a lot of people hoped for. It says, though, again, it's unclear if this movement is what Guillemot is referring to here, but it's worth noting that he was pressed on the allegedly woke element of Ubisoft games by a shareholder, and he didn't take the bait. We wanted to showcase characters with heroic journeys. So why not make a brand new story, a totally unique story with totally unique characters? And why did you decide to call it historically accurate in the first place? That's really what kind of was, I would say, the start of the controversy with this game. If they hadn't said that and they said it's a fictional game, it's a video game, these characters might be inspired by real people, but they're definitely not supposed to be accurate, like, people would have viewed this game very differently. That's why previous Assassin's Creed games didn't take nearly as much heat, because they did not present them in the same way. And then you just pile all of these problems on top of the fact that it was just a really bad game, controversy after controversy after controversy, and they really only have themselves to blame. So now apparently, guys, it's our fault that their games are failing, and it's all because we are very sensitive to the quality of games. It's not that they're delivering bad experiences, it's not that they're scamming us, it's not that they're shoving microtransactions in our face because they believe it makes an experience more fun. It's our fault for criticizing them. It's our fault for not just shutting up and consuming product. And apparently, because we're very sensitive to the quality of games, there's a high risk of bashing causing damage to its reputation. All I can say is boo-hoo, cry me a river and float upstream. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.